Good afternoon, council colleagues and citizens. I am Lisa Lucas-Burke, Vice Mayor, and I'll be leading this meeting until our mayor returns. Welcome to our February 14th meeting of the Public Works Session. And with that said, we'll begin with our roll call of our members by Madam Clerk.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Hugel.
Present.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke.
Here.
Mr. Moody.
Here.
Mr. Tillage.
Here.
Dr. Whitaker.
Present.
Mayor Glover. Mayor Glover.
He's coming. He's on his way. Okay, and we'll turn our meeting over to our interim city manager, Madam Interim City Manager Mimi Terry.
Good evening, members of Portsmouth City Council, Portsmouth family, and happy Valentine's Day, the day of love. So I'm going to get started with a Hampton Roads transit update by our own Mr. Carl Jackson, who is an employee with the Planning and Zoning.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of council, Interim City Manager, Ms. Terry. Good evening, everyone. Please allow me to present to you the city's FY24 Transportation Service Plan with Hampton Roads Transit, as well as a general overview of HRT services here in Portsmouth. Hampton Roads Transit is the largest transit provider in the region. Its system currently serves 6 cities with over 70 bus routes, paddle wheel ferry service, paratransit service. The Tide Light Rail started operating in Norfolk in August of 2011. Here in Portsmouth, HRT provides fixed route bus service, paratransit, and ferry service. The Traffics program provides carpool travel demand management service at the Park and Sale commuter lot, which is on Court Street, and at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. HRT is the operating name for the Transit District Commission of Hampton Roads, TDCHR. The commission has an executive board that is comprised of HRT leadership, 1 state senator, 1 state delegate, and 2 representatives from each member city. One who's a locally elected official, and one who's represented by the governor. Our own Mayor Glover serves as a board commissioner, and I have the fortune of serving as his alternate. And of course, our interim city manager, Ms. Terry, can also serve as an alternate or appointed designee. At this time, Portsmouth is missing a gubernatorial appointment to the board, and this is open to any Portsmouth resident. They may apply with the Secretary of the Commonwealth. The Executive Board works with the President and the CEO of HRT to coordinate commission operations. Commissioners are asked to serve on 1 or more committees, which cover everything from budget and finance to planning and innovation. Then Mayor Glover currently serves as the Operation and Oversight Committee Chair. I serve on most of the other committees, but in particular the Management, Finance, and Advisory Committee, which helps to develop the Transportation Service Plan and is represented by planners and finance staff from all the member cities. So city staff has continued to work with HRT to enhance the level of service of bus routes and ferries here in Portsmouth. Generally, HRT operates in Portsmouth every half hour to an hour between 5 a.m. and 12 a.m. midnight, 7 days a week, with some bus routes not operating on Sundays. Average annual ridership is nearly 500,000 passengers. Annual paratransit trips are just over 20,000 trips per year. These numbers, however, are still down since the pandemic. As you can see from these maps and route descriptions, HRT operates the 7 fixed bus routes, which originate in downtown Portsmouth and serve most of the city, including the Norfolk Naval Medical Center, the Portsmouth Naval Medical Center, the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, Taiwan Community College, Bon Secours Mayorview Medical Center, Kroger, Walmart, and Victory Crossing Shopping Center. Some routes also provide service to Norfolk via the downtown and midtown tunnels, including the routes 44 and routes 45, which are partially funded by the Elizabeth River Crossing. Route 47 provides service to Suffolk via High Street and Town Point Road. Route 57 serves Chesapeake via Victory Boulevard and George Washington Highway. HRT ferry service departs every half hour to Norfolk from the High Street and North Landing ferry docks. Higher frequency service for the ferry is provided during special events such as Emoja Fest. Direct service to Harbor Park Stadium is provided on game nights. In October of 2022, HRT implemented the first phase of its new regional express bus network known as 757 Express. Bus Route 980 actually serves also downtown Portsmouth. It starts in downtown Norfolk, comes here to Portsmouth at the Corton County bus lineup. It also serves the Victory Crossing Transfer Center, which is adjacent to our brand new Rivers Casino. So we do have express service from downtown Portsmouth to Rivers Casino, and this bus does continue on to the Amazon facilities that are in Chesapeake and Suffolk. HRT has also installed new passenger amenities as part of this regional network. State-of-the-art shelters have been installed with solar lighting and trash bins. There are now about 43 bus shelters in Portsmouth, 22 that have been installed since 2020, and more shelters are being planned. A new cleaning and maintenance campaign called Am I Clean allows passengers to report trash and graffiti and other issues at area bus stops. Happy to report that local groups like Keep Portsmouth Clean have done an excellent job recruiting volunteers to clean bus stops. HRT also has its own Adopt a Stop program. So with regard to funding, HRT receives its capital and operational funding from federal, state, and local resources, also regional resources, as I'll go into. Federal funding is authorized by the Federal Transit Administration. State funding is authorized by the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation. Local funding has represented up to 44% of overall funding. That's local from all the member cities of HRT. But this percentage has actually gone down with new regional funding. So in 2020, the General Assembly passed House and Senate bills creating the Hampton Roads Regional Transit Fund. And this is a new dedicated source of funding for public transportation in the Hampton Roads region. The HRRTF is managed by the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission and is responsible for dispersing funds. Hampton Roads Transit uses this funding to supplement it's part of its 757 regional network, also the purchase of new rolling stock, new buses, passenger amenities, and shelters. And the strategic allocation of both federal funds and the regional funding has actually reduced the cost to Portsmouth, as well as other member cities. So member cities signed what's called a cost allocation agreement with HRT, and they agreed to pay their local share for transit service that's provided to each city. Transit routes that serve more than one locality are billed based on the mileage and service hours within each prospective city. Any fare revenues from transit passengers are applied directly to the local share. The agreement also requires cities to pay for any cost overages or shortages from less than expected fare box revenue. And staff meets with HRT Planning and Finance to determine what the level of transit service will be for the next fiscal year. Based on advice from city staff, our city manager must sign off on a final transportation service plan with HRT, which details service hours, routes, and cost to Portsmouth for the next fiscal year. And this TSB, as it's called, is the estimated fare box, is based on estimated fare box revenue, federal, state, and regional subsidies. So this is our TSP for FY 2024 Transportation Service Plan. The plan sheet lists all Portsmouth service routes, ferry and paratransit service. Commission expenses and advanced capital contributions are listed as the local match for grant-funded projects and other service initiatives. HRT's strategic allocation of federal aid has reduced Portsmouth's overall costs by $464,000. And our estimated cost for FY24 is approximately $3.16 million, which will be included as part of the city's annual budget. So in addition to the TSP, there's a big TSP, which is called the Transit Strategic Plan. And this plan covers a 10-year planning horizon from FY24 to FY2033. And it's a strategic blueprint which outlines the changes that will improve HRT service across the city and the region. The centerpiece, as I mentioned before, this plan is the new core bus network known as the 757 Express, which, when fully implemented, will provide a 15-minute peak hour service on about a dozen regional routes and will augment some of the existing express routes that exist today. Here in Portsmouth, we have the Route 45, which goes from downtown Norfolk to Portsmouth along Portsmouth Boulevard. The 47, which goes from downtown Portsmouth to Churchland. And of course, our new Route 980, which provides express service from Portsmouth to the Rivers Casino via the Victory Crossing Transfer Center. We're also looking at expanded express routes that'll serve the Norfolk Naval Shipyard and the Newport News Shipyard as well. So the big thing, as part of this strategic plan, we could expect that there will be significant bus route changes that are being planned. It requires that almost every bus route in Portsmouth be modified to accommodate this new regional network, as we've discussed. The major changes include Route 43 will be discontinued due to low ridership. This is a route that serves the Parkview community. Route 45 will be extended to serve the full length of Portsmouth Boulevard. Route 47 will add service to Walmart on Frederick Boulevard, and Route 50 will add service to the Portsmouth Naval Medical Center. And if I could add, the improvements that will come with these changes will supplement what we're losing on Route 43. So the Parkview community, the Portsmouth Naval Hospital, and Walmart will still be served by changes to the existing routes that are listed here. Unfortunately, implementation of this plan has been delayed due to operator shortages at HRT. Like anywhere else, it's hard to hire good people, and so it will take them some time to hire the drivers that they need to fully implement this plan. But while we're waiting for the plan to be implemented, city staff will be partnering with HRT to implement an extensive public outreach plan with online, in-person, and other interactions about the proposed bus route changes for Portsmouth and some of the improvements that should come with this 757 express bus network. This is just a schedule that we have here of, as part of our public outreach plan. Of course, today, City Council work session. We will be available for the Portsmouth Empowerment Forum next month in March. We are targeting certain Civic League meetings, particularly in the areas that are affected by the bus route changes. And there will be pop-up events at the bus transfer centers so we can direct our attention to the riders about the changes that are going to be made. And this is on top of all the other standard notices and alerts, emails, and texts that HRT will be sending out before these changes come to fruition. But again, the implementation is dependent on operator availability. City staff will continue to work with HRT when they're ready to implement some of the changes for this network. Some other changes coming along. HRT should be submitting plans to redesign the canopies and the boarding platforms at the High Street and North Landing ferry docks. The proposals will provide more shelter, general visibility, and lighting at the current ferry landings. So we're looking forward to that. Also, staff has worked with HRT and VDOT to develop a new transit center for Portsmouth at the corner of Barton Court Street at the current Park and Sale parking lot. And this transit center will also replace the lineup that's currently in front of the County Street Garage. Of course, at some point that garage will be replaced, so we're hoping to relocate the buses to their own facility. That's what we're hoping to do in the near future. The project is funded through VDOT Smart Scale for fiscal years 26 and 27. So there you go. There's the drawing right there. So I'm available for questions if you have any.
Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Jackson, for the wonderful presentation. I guess the question I have is the Portsmouth local contribution of the 3.16 million, is that affected by the changes in the routes that we are implementing, expanding and decreasing?
No, it's not. It actually incorporates
That's
those
incorporated in there.
changes, yes.
Okay, and second question, is there an opportunity for us to advertise Portsmouth? I mean, I've seen some bus wraps, something that advertise, we're hiring officers or looking for, quality people to, however they advertise, whatever needs
Right.
to be advertised. And I guess that would go through our marketing probably, but I was just wondering if that's an opportunity in our funding that we get.
Sure. Yeah, I can actually look into that and
Okay.
talk to HRT about it. I know it has been done for other public agencies.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hugel, then after you, Dr. Whitaker. Sir, you have the floor, Councilman Hugel.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Jackson, for the presentation. So I understand that Hampton Roads Transit has an on-demand pilot that's running in Virginia Beach and Newport News, an Uber-like arrangement. Any insight into how that pilot's going and whether we can anticipate that service being made available here in Portsmouth?
Yes, from what I understand, the pilot has been very successful. They did use a grant in order to start that pilot, and it also did require a matching local grant from those cities, actual matching local funding from both, Newport News and from Virginia Beach. And there's actually legislation going into the General Assembly to hopefully to extend the state portion of that grant so that that program can continue. I think that once we see how the pilot works out and how it's been vetted in those two cities, we're going to be working with HRT to see if we can expand it region-wide, including here in Portsmouth. Because there are some areas that aren't served by transit, particularly parts of Churchland, which would be ideal for some kind of on-demand service.
And our population by percentage is higher ridership than Virginia Beach, Newport News, or any other community in Hampton Roads. So having access to that service might be very helpful to our citizens.
Right, thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Jackson, thank you for the presentation. I may have missed it, but as far as the strategic plan, any call for any rate changes?
No, there will be no fare changes as part of that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Tillage, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. The only questions I have is in regards to the Victory Transfer Station. As part of the 10-year plan, which I don't know what that consists of, can we find a way to work with HRT to have them to rehab that area? I've drove by the casino quite a few times over the last few weeks, and it's pretty dark in that area, especially at night. And of course, too, I mean, you want it to kind of be an attraction, since it's next to the casino. And then my second question is in regards to the ferry. So I noticed that the ferry only takes cash, and it's exact change. In today's world, a lot of people carry credit cards or debit cards, or even Apple Pay. Is it a way that we can talk with HRT to find out ways in which we could make alternative payment methods for people to be able to catch the ferry to and from Norfolk? I think.
Yes, yeah, definitely, absolutely. But to go to your first question, we are working on some lighting improvements as part of the casino. Some of their, site or off-site improvements will include lighting along Cavalier Boulevard, which will help to improve the overall lighting at Victory Crossing. I can also talk with HRT as far as any other plans that they have to improve the lighting. They did install solar lighting shelters as well, but I'll continue to work with them on that. As far as with the fare on the ferry, there is right now a study to do mobile fare ticketing where you can use your cell phone to purchase fares. That's in the early stages right now with HRT, but it's something that will go online system-wide. So not just the ferry, but also the bus and the light rail and all the different modes. But for the time being, you can purchase fare cards. There's a kiosk right across the street from the High Street Landing where fare cards can be purchased using a credit or a debit card. And then when you get on the ferry, you can just swipe it right there.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman
Excellent presentation, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. My question is, what is HRT doing as far as converting from fossil fuel buses to electric? How's that coming along?
It's coming along, yeah. They have purchased about a dozen Proterra electric buses that they're testing out throughout the region. I know right now they're on some of the routes between Norfolk and Virginia Beach as they're testing the technology. But almost at every meeting I say, when are we going to see an electric bus in Portsmouth, you know? And I'm sure it's coming, you know, but it'll probably be on either routes 45 or 47, since those tend to be some of the longer routes.
So it is anticipated that we'll have a electric bus soon?
Absolutely. I'm going to keep pushing for it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Mr. Jackson, well, one of the things I want to say to you, sir, is it's my pleasure to serve on the HRT board with such a professional. I've met many professionals, but the fact is that you do a lot in terms of transportation to ensure that we can move our people, our citizens around appropriately. Couple of things I would like to ask you, if you would be so kind, is to kind of update us on. One of those things is the shelters. Many in our community remember that a lot of our bus routes didn't have shelters. And so we worked very hard, and our citizens worked very hard to get those shelters. So where are we in terms of our shelter progress? Are we almost done, or where are we, sir?
Well, you know, we do have 43 bus shelters right now and 22 new shelters that have been installed since 2020, primarily along this new regional network that HRT is developing. But once those shelters have been finished, they're going to start looking at other sites and other routes as well. So there should be more shelters coming in the near future.
Thank you for that. And I have a couple more, because I do want to let folks know that Mr. Jackson has been a frequent rider of our buses. So he can tell us what really goes on those buses. And I've had an opportunity to ride too, so thank you with that, sir. I didn't hear you mention that we also have a ferry service to our baseball field in Norfolk, right? The Norfolk baseball field.
Yes, we do on game nights. Yeah, there is ferry service to Harbor
Right.
Park from North Landing.
And maybe I missed that, but for the baseball fans, you can actually ride directly to Harbor Park, which is a good thing. But overall, so how would you assess the progress that is being made, and what would you tell the citizens as it relates to if they have any concerns about future transportation routes or other ideas? I know that there's online and other places they can go to send information, but what would you say to encourage our citizens to continue to support public transportation?
Well, I would tell citizens to stay tuned. We do have public meetings that are coming up this spring and summer, where we will be talking about some of the route changes that are proposed. But as you said, Mr. Mayor, gohrt.com, 757-222-6100 is the customer service number. And then, of course, myself, I'm available for any comments or any suggestions for how we can improve service from HRT.
Thank you for all your service, sir. Great job.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. I'm going to kind of move the program a little, because Mr. Woodard is going to do the homeless shelter, but he's hard at work dealing with the client. So I'm going to ask if Dr. Washington could come and present the Coldest Night of the Year 5K Walk. She is working with the Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless.
Good evening. Mayor Glover, Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, council members, city attorney, and city clerk, and my fellow citizens. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this evening to share some information about the work that we're doing. Set me up. So before I talk about the coldest night of the year, I do want to give sort of an overview of Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless. Many of you may be familiar with it, but it is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to serve the citizens of Portsmouth who are homeless. As a part of that support work, we operate a service center, which is year-round, and we also do night sheltering. In 2020, March, when COVID hit, we actually were able to continue services uninterrupted. The sheriff had a work release center that was vacant, and he allowed us to come in. And so while other night shelter programs around the area closed, we were able to stay open, and we were able to operate and provide services to the citizens uninterrupted. As a part of that, we normally shelter 175 nights between November and May. As of today, we have been sheltering 1,189 nights. We went into our COVID operations in March 2020, and we did not experience an outbreak of COVID in a congregate environment until January of 2022. So that shows what happens when we can educate people about how things are transmitted and put policies and practices in place to decrease the possibility of risk. When a client comes in to us for shelter, they participate in what's called a barrier assessment. That barrier assessment identifies barriers that they feel they need to overcome, and then we create plans based on that. So that's how we provide support services. We work with a network of providers within the city, and we're able to get clients housed through that network. So we provide case management, we provide access to substance abuse treatment, we provide access to mental health services, medical services, whatever they identify, employment, we help our clients to get their government-issued picture ID, their social security cards, birth certificates. The three things that we need in this society that says we are a member of the society in order to get employed and in order to get housing. So people aren't just coming to us for shelter, but we're coaching our clients to their better potential. As you can imagine, in order to do that, many resources need to be made available. And so what we have done is we are working to diversify our financial support. And one of those opportunities is the coldest night of the year. We hosted the first coldest night of the year last year in 2022. The coldest night of the year is a partner event with Blue Sea Foundation. And instead of Blue Sea Foundation offering charities grants, it's an earned partnership. So we partner together to be able to create opportunities, fundraising opportunities, and we can benefit by as much as we can fundraise. That's the difference between other foundations and Blue Sea. In order to be a participant, which in 2022, it's a Canadian event, it was the first time that the event was expanded to the United States. And Portsmouth in Virginia was one of 7 locations and 4 states that were selected. Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless was that location. We had to be vetted. They had to vet our board. They had to vet our finances. They had to vet our operations in order to be accepted to participate. So that was last year. This year, we're doing the same event, Coldest Night of the Year. So the Coldest Night of the Year is a fun, family-friendly, winterific event. It is designed to be experiential. So we walk on the seawall, and as you all walk on the seawall, you will see many of our homeless brothers and sisters. It's designed for us to have just an experience for a short period of time to know what some of our brothers and sisters are experiencing when they're out doing cold temperatures. The event is designed to raise awareness about hunger, homelessness, and people who are hurting. And again, it does serve as a source of financial support. So, Coldest Night of the Year is a 5K walk. It's downtown on the Portsmouth seawall. We begin at the City Hall Plaza and then launch from the seawall. The event has its benefits in team captains, and those team captains recruit walkers. And those walkers and team captains fundraise. And if any of you were out last year, it is an amazing community engagement. We were just coming off of a lot of people being at home related to COVID, and the energy and the engagement was amazing. So what happens? How do you do it? You can serve as a team captain, and you can invite your family, friends, coworkers. It's an amazing team building opportunity. You can donate. If you choose not to walk, you can donate to a team, or you can donate to walkers. You can join a team that's already in place and fundraise. You can be an event sponsor, connect with your consumers in the community. And I have to admit that this is a draw from across Hampton Roads. We had individuals who came from Richmond, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, because they wanted to walk with their team captains that they were recruited. And you can come out and cheer the teams on if that's what you so choose. So this picture was as of the 10th of February. And at that time, as you can see, we had 102 walkers registered already, 35 teams, 17 volunteers, and 15 days to go. As of today, we have 133 walkers, 37 teams, 22 volunteers, and we are at 56% of our goal, which is $25,000. Last year, our goal was $20,000, and we raised almost $30,000. So this is just a snap of a throwback of some of how the community came out in 2022. And I just have a short video clip to show you that the City of Portsmouth produced from the event last year. This is our first year doing the event, and it's the first year that the event has been hosted in the United States. So it's a very exciting time for us.
We all are going to go back to our warm homes, but the folks who are living on the street can't do that. And I want to raise people's awareness of that and make them aware that right here in our own city, there are things that they can do to help the plight of the homeless.
There are individuals in our community who don't have a place to call home. They're sleeping in places that are not meant for human habitation, whether it's in an abandoned car, an abandoned building, under a bridge, in a crevice, wherever they can find to keep warm. And so our goal is to be able to provide a night of shelter, safety, a hearty meal as we work with individuals so they can rebuild their lives.
This is a showing of the Portsmouth family. As Dr. Darlene talked about, it's all of our responsibility. We have a shared responsibility to care for the least amongst us.
I believe that we all owe a duty to give back. We've been blessed with so much, man. We have to be able to bless others. So every dime, every nickel, every penny, every dollar counts, and us giving back to those who are a little unfortunate at this time. And for us to be able to be out here today and actually feel the plight of being homeless in a time like this when it's very cold, that makes it really real for us.
Our goal for tonight, which the event is called Coldest Night of the Year, and it's designed to raise awareness about homelessness and provide services, financial support for services for individuals who are homeless, hungry, and hurting.
I'm so grateful. I thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your Saturday. You could have been doing a lot of things, but you decided to come here and help. And that is the most important thing we all can do.
Homelessness is something that plagues every city and town. The latest statistics state that 1.5 million Americans are pretty much homeless every night. And I can't imagine myself being homeless. And so because I can't imagine that, I'm gonna do my part, we're gonna do our part to try to, reduce that number as much as possible.
We just want to make people aware that, no matter what the weather is, there are people out there who need our help.
So this event involves us coordinating with almost every department within the city, and it was flawless. From planning to permits, to parks and recreation, to property management, to risk and legal, we have to collaborate with almost every department within the city. For this year, the city does have a team. We have teams coming from across Hampton Roads. Portsmouth Warm Soul is a team, the Portsmouth City team. We have a team coming from Virginia Wesleyan University. We have a team coming from Legal Aid of Southeastern Virginia. So we have teams coming from around the region to support us. We're looking forward to it. Again, the coldest night of the year, February the 25th at the Portsmouth Seawall. Check-in is at 4 p.m. and the walk launches at 5 p.m. Any questions?
Well, I don't see any questions, but I do want to make a comment, if it's okay with my colleagues. I want to thank you personally for your leadership in bringing the coldest night of the year to the city of Portsmouth. And you are an inspiration to so many by your work ethic, by your compassion, your care and concern for the least amongst us in our community who may be going through difficult times. So I just wanted you to know, Dr. Darlene, I call you affectionately, we appreciate you. We appreciate what you do. And if you could share with the citizens one more time, who do you want the checks made out to?
Please make any checks made out to Blue Sea Foundation. Blue Sea Foundation.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's my honor to serve. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So this is a great segue into our next presentation. This is a status update of our homeless shelter, and it will be given by Nathan Woodard, who is the Behavioral Health Services Director.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Evening, sir.
Madam Vice Mayor, City Council, Madam City Manager, and all of our citizens here in Portsmouth. I think Dr. Washington did a great job in her presentation, as the City Manager said, and a segue to an update on our shelter, or our homeless initiative, which is a City Council initiative that is funded by ARPA funds. 1 out of 6 people in America currently live one paycheck from being homeless. Many of us know some of those people. Some of those people are family members, friends, even neighbors. So anytime we have an opportunity to provide such a service to our citizens, I think is extremely important. Our homeless initiative update. With our homeless initiative, we have 3 phases. We have the programming phase, design phase, and the construction phase. I'd like to introduce you to those departments and stakeholders that were a part of the programming phase. First, we have the Department of Behavioral Health Care Services, the Department of Engineering, the Department of Social Services, Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless, as well as Mosley Architects. The site that we have located where the shelter will be is at 1709 County Street. You'll see a black square in the middle of the screen. That is the actual site. This site is located behind the Department of Social Services and right in front of Oasis Ministries. This site is particularly important for several reasons. One of the things that we're looking to do there is have the opportunity to have a one-stop shop. For those persons that are experiencing homelessness, we will be able to come over from social services to help them with applications such as Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, and so forth. Also not pictured here, the Department of Behavioral Health Care Services is right next door. So those persons that may be experiencing a mental health episode or need therapy or counseling or medications, we too will have staff that will come over frequently and provide those services and assist them. This is a rendition of the site plan for Mosley Architects. The current site plan consists of a single structure with 3 levels. The first floor will have all services and day programming, while the second floor and third floors will have the sleeping areas. The first floor amenities. We will have a dining center. There in the dining center area, we will have a full service kitchen. We will have a health center where we will provide comprehensive primary health care services, i.e., we will be having a physician to come in to do physicals and checkups. We also try to contract with a dentist to come in to do dental work as well. We have a kitchen. We have a full-service kitchen which will provide all meals for the residents while they are housed there. Next, we will have day services. And our day services will be where we have all of our operations and offices. This will be the area where, again, the Department of Social Services, Department of Behavioral Health Care Services, Department of Rehab Services will come to meet with the residents on a periodic basis to, again, help them with applications, do counseling, therapy, so forth and so on. Then we have a learning center where there will be instructional area and breakout rooms. And lastly, the shelter operations, as well we will have our maintenance and security. The second floor, the sleeping areas will consist of 50 rooms, with 4 of those rooms being handicap accessible. Each room will have its own shower area for privacy of the residents. The rooms will also consist of a desk as well as a chair, which will allow the residents to complete work tasks and different activities. Lastly, the rooms will be approximately 120 square feet, and the handicap accessible rooms will be 150 square feet. One room will have a roll-in shower in the event if the individual is in a wheelchair, and of course the other rooms will be a lower shower for those that can't step into showers. the project phases. As I stated earlier, the programming phase is completed. Now we're moving on to the design phase. The design phase is scheduled to be completed early to mid-spring of 2023. The construction phase. There will be an advertisement for construction with the goal of starting construction in the summer of 2023. And lastly, this timeline will use, this will allow us to be within the ARPA guidelines for obligating and expending funds. There is currently $10 million that has been allotted for this project. Any questions?
Any questions from my colleagues on council? Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Woodard, for the presentation. And it's good to see something that our previous council put in motion is coming into reality. I have several questions. As far as the, on page 5, as far as the health center that's going to be on the first floor, you mentioned that there'll be a physician and there may be a dentist. My question is, how often will these services be available each week? How often will these persons be available each week?
Well, we're looking at utilizing students from the Eastern Virginia Medical School. So it will really depend upon their schedules, but we're hoping at least two to three times weekly. As well as with the dentistry, we're looking at using dentistry students. So it will really depend upon their schedules as well, but hopefully at least 2 to 3 times a week as well.
Well, of course, is that because of a budgetary issue that there's not a permanent physician that would be in place? So it's not a budget concern that if you had funding, you could have a physician there to address concerns on a daily basis?
Not at this point. I think that the use of the medical students and their teacher as a supervisor will probably bode well for us as well as them. And what we've seen in other shelters that have used students after they finish their rotations, the students have come back and volunteer and gave us free help. So we wouldn't have to expend any funds on those services.
Okay, and so as far as the persons who will be needing those services, based on the current operations, you have the capacity to handle the needs on not a daily basis, but every 2 or 3 days?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Also, on page 6 of the presentation, you speak of the second floor amenities, and there being 50 rooms. How many days will persons be allowed to stay in the facility?
Well, currently we're looking at anywhere from 45 to 60 days, with the understanding this is going to be short term. Some people that come in will certainly be short term. They may be behind on their rent and recently got evicted, so they may stay only a week. But then we may have persons that are in a little more dire straits that may need longer time. It may also need to apply for different benefits. So that's why we have that range from 45 to 60 days.
Mm-hmm. And how does that work as far as when we're talking about persons helping them with employment and needing to have an address for information to come back to? Will that serve as a basis for them using this location as an address?
Absolutely. Currently, we have persons with behavioral health care services that are homeless, and we are assisting them with different applications like SSI or Medicaid. And we allow them to utilize our address so that they can continue to get mailings so they don't miss anything in reference to the completion of their application. Certainly.
Is that allowed for voting purposes as well?
I'm not sure, but I can check on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Moody, you have the floor, then Vice Mayor Lucasberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Woodard.
Yes, sir.
My question is, you have 50 rooms. What determines who gets one of the 50?
Well, there will be an application process. We're going to start off looking at a first come, first serve when it comes to filling out the application and screening. So if a person meets all the criteria, which we're still designing that currently, then they will have the possibility to come into the shelter.
What's the estimate on our homeless population?
We just did our time and point count a couple of weeks ago. I don't have that information specifically, but I can get back with you with that.
Yeah, that would be good to have, and I'm certain that it's much larger than the 50 rooms that are available. That's why I think it's critical to see how, what determines the need criteria to get one of those rooms.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Vice Mayor Lucasberg, and then Councilman Hugo, I believe you had a question?
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Absolutely. Please, sir.
It's in regards to Councilman Moody's question on the 50 rooms. Is that 50 rooms, you said there were 2 floors, the second and third floor. Is that per floor or is that total?
Actually, it's 3 floors. On the first floor, we're going to have the programming. On the second and third floor, we're going to have rooms, and that's going to be 25 rooms on each floor.
Okay. And then is that expanding the number of rooms that are presently available through Oasis?
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure exactly how many rooms Oasis has, but it will be in addition to, but I'm not sure exactly that number, but I can get that number for you as well.
Can I ask Can I ask Dr. Washington why she's here?
Absolutely. Dr. Washington, would you like to address that question, please?
So Oasis Oasis Social Ministry does feeding. They provide feedings for the community. Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless currently is the only adult single sheltering. And yes, the 50-bed facility will increase our current capacity. So pre-COVID, what we're doing now is the 50-bed capacity is in line with what our capacity was pre-COVID when we were doing the church-to-church. As Nathan said, the point-in-time count took place in January. We don't have the final numbers yet, but for the unsheltered, it was approximately 40. Okay. For the unsheltered, that was people who were outside, out and about in the city.
So Portsmouth Volunteer for the Homeless Shelter, as far as housing, that's still on the rotational basis, and there's no housing actually at Portsmouth Volunteer for the homeless?
No, sir. So in March of 2020, we stopped doing the rotations because the churches had to close because of COVID. And that's when the sheriff allowed us to go into a temporary facility.
Okay.
And that's where we've been now year-round, but we don't rotate.
Right.
So we're there in a stationary facility temporarily.
Okay, and that's 50 rooms there?
That capacity is 20, based on our need to continue COVID protocols.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Woodard, for the presentation. And thank you, colleagues, for being in my head. They both asked the questions that I wanted to know about the third floor and also the application process. But I do have one additional question about the day services that are being offered. Is that a criteria for the persons who are going to be residing in the center for the 45 days to participate, or who actually gets to participate in the day services?
Yes, that will be one criteria that they will have to participate in the day program, because we don't want them just staying in their rooms throughout the day and not really being engaged with their peers and getting other services. So that will be a requirement.
Great. And the last question is the dining center, who provides that? Is that some FDA, I mean, I know it's FDA approved, but who is contracted to provide that service? I know people finding services and getting people hired has been limited all across all bases. So how is that going to be handled?
We will be doing that in-house.
Okay.
So we will have hire an entire kitchen staff, as well as servers to provide that service to the residents while they're there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Hugo, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Woodard, for the presentation.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if there's a elevator built into the design. You didn't mention that. We have handicapped folks that need access. Is that part of the plan?
It certainly is. And if I can go back, the elevator, if you see where that gray, looks like a gray door, the elevator will be right in that area. Right now, we're looking at having one elevator, possibly two, but at least one. Yes, sir.
And then back to the medical care that's available. So we recently attended the ribbon cutting for the Hampton Roads Community Health Center, which is right around the corner. So hopefully there's transportation that you can provide on those days when you don't have EVMS students available?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Tillage, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So there was some conversation regarding the number of rooms being 50 rooms, but we know that number of rooms are different from number of beds. So will these rooms be double occupancy or single occupancy?
It will be single.
Single?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what I want to hopefully charge this council with is 50 beds, in my opinion, is not enough. So, of course, moving forward with this is phenomenal, but I would like to see this council expand our services to make sure that we provide more shelter to individuals. Portsmouth has the largest unsheltered population in the entire Hampton Roads region. And as Dr. Darlene Washington just spoke about, she has 50 unsheltered, that's just unsheltered individuals, not including people that might have some housing needs a couple of days a week or a couple of weeks out of the month. And so that 40 is probably really 75. And so I would love to see this council expand on this building to be able to provide more services, not only for homeless individuals, but also for people that are struggling from paycheck to paycheck. Earlier this week, I received some phone calls from people, and this is a little bit off topic, but in regards to rental assistance and public utilities. People are struggling, and our social services are not being met. And when I mean that, I mean human services are not being met to our constituents here in the city of Portsmouth. And so if we're really going to make a positive change, I really think that this council needs to, as we look into this budget, dig deeper into our pockets as far as the city is concerned to fund homelessness assistance, as well as to provide more resources for human services, because the staff at Behavioral Healthcare is doing a phenomenal job. Social services is doing what they can do, but our people are struggling. And if we are really going to make an impact, we've got to put our money where our mouth is. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, I agree with Councilman Tillage on that as far as the capacity. That's why I was asking about those rooms. That would necessitate that there be a redesign of the facility that would require additional funds that council. So, Mr. Mayor, is that something that I would be in agreement with that as well? Is that something to get a consensus on? Because I know the architect has already given this preliminary design for us to look at increased capacity and to bring that cost figure back to council, and if there are ARPA funds that can be used.
The question before us then is, based on the information, is there a consensus to request that in the design phase that we be presented with additional options with the current option, and perhaps adding more rooms or beds to another option? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the manager is speaking to something that I think we need to address too before we call for the consensus, and it's the engineering part. Could you speak to that, Mr. Engineer?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. If this is something that you want to consider, You want to do it, add it onto the programming phase. You don't want to get into design and start making those changes. So before you start doing the design, you need to consider that at this point. So we just expand upon the programming that you've already done. It sounds like additional beds, 25 beds, you're just adding a floor, but there may be some additional things that the architect may need to consider. So it's something we could probably bring back to you in a few weeks.
Okay, and I think that would suffice. Is that what we're hearing?
Right. This is a question, would that delay, I noticed that there was a start date, was somewhere in the summer of this year?
The schedule's a bit skewed. Those dates should actually be 2024.
Okay.
So it won't impact the schedule at all. We've actually put cushion in the schedule, just in case there are additional things we need to consider, but also because of material deliveries and things like that. So there's cushion in the schedule both for design and construction.
Okay, yeah, well, I'd definitely be interested in seeing that because I think this is our first time seeing the design.
Sure, sir. And we'll take that question up. I'm going to ask Councilman Hugo to add a point that he wants to make. Sir.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I certainly agree we ought to be building capacity for the need. I listened to Councilman Tillage, and I'm not sure I followed the math to how 40 yields 75. So I guess I'd be interested to understand from the experts, what's the real need? And let's start from that place and build a design around our anticipated need.
No, and I think based on that, I think that's fair. Before I pose the question as a consensus, because I think what Dr. Whitaker was asking for was for options to be brought back based on what the real need is and the future need, perhaps. So I don't disagree with that. But what I wanted to ask, which wasn't asked, I look at the square footage. What happens when a young family is homeless? Where do the babies go?
Well, currently, we do have 2 other providers in the city of Portsmouth that deal with families.
Okay.
Again, this would just be for individuals.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear on that.
Yep.
and understood where it was going. So, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. So your question kind of validates my point. We need a holistic look at the problem to make sure that we're not solving a little piece of the problem when we have an opportunity to solve a big piece of the problem.
Very good, sir. Thank you. So with that in mind, the question for consensus that was posed, do we have a consensus to ask our city manager and her team to bring back different options based on the information that is provided as to what the actual need is? Can I see a show of hands? Madam Manager, it looks like you and your team have some more work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Woodard, could you please stand fast real quick? The city attorney would like to ask a question.
I just wanted to make a comment. I remember Councilman Tillage and Councilman Moody brought up the issue of panhandling. I just want to point out that the services provided by the shelter would contribute to the non-policing aspect of how to resolve that panhandling issue. Part of what the city manager and her team discussed with legal were other options available, and I think the services provided by this entity moving forward will help solve that issue as well. So I just want to point that out to the council. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Woodard.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
The next item for discussion is the VA 250 legislation update that will be presented by Keith Toller with Tourism.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight to give you an informational update on the VA 250 and on the American Revolution 250 Commission. The commission was created by the Virginia General Assembly in 2020, and they're established as an advisory board under the executive branch of state government. Their purpose was really to prepare for the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, of America's independence from Great Britain, and also to develop programming to commemorate the 250th. The requests that they were given were to work with localities to form individual commissions or committees, we'll call them committees at the local level, to help prepare and help to share some of the stories that that we want to convey as being Virginians. They want to reach to work with the committee was scheduled to is supposed to work with the federal government and the federal and local American 250 commissions, because we're not the only ones. All the other states will be doing this as well. And they see this also as an economic development opportunity through tourism. And so the American Revolution 250 Commission was asked to partner with the Virginia Tourism Corporation. So how does Portsmouth fit into all of this? There's quite a few stories that we can tell. It will be really up to the committee that we form to come up with the stories that we want to tell. These are just some of the ideas. In 1781, the British occupied Portsmouth. I'm not sure what your level of knowledge of the history is right now, but we were occupied, meaning our architecture, our homes weren't burned, our city wasn't burned as Norfolk was, and some of the other places around the area were burned. But we were occupied, so that is a story within itself. We had the General Benedict Arnold was here, who's pretty famous. That's a good story to tell. And then Governor Dunmore. Lord Dunmore was also here for that. Fort Nelson and Gosport, both strongholds during the Civil War. Both were burned during during the Revolutionary War. Both were burned during that time by the British because they didn't want the Americans to have access to those facilities. We have two really strong African-American war heroes from this area. There's Billy Flora. We have a monument here in town to Billy Flora right now. He was considered to be the hero at the Battle of Great Bridge in 1775. The other is James Armistead Lafayette, who was one of America's first African-American spies, and he is attributed with providing information to Lafayette and to the Continental Army that actually led to the winning at the Battle of Yorktown and ultimately to America's independence. We have colonial era architecture still standing. Many cities do not have that architecture still standing. Our oldest house dates back to the 1740s. It's located on London Boulevard. There's several others that were built around 1776 at the time of the American Revolution. We have an ongoing event that's happened here for many years called A Post Such as Portsmouth. It's an annual event that talks about the British occupation here in Portsmouth. So those are just some of the ideas that we've come up with. This is not the final list by any stretch. Again, that's going to be up to the commission that we form to come up and figure out what those stories are, the stories that we want to tell. So what's in it for Portsmouth? We have an opportunity to secure grants through the Virginia VA 250 to support content development, to support programming, to support interpretive signage if we decide we want to do that. And to do whatever we come up with. There's grant money available, and it's only available to those localities who agree to participate in the program. We have it's an opportunity for us to advance Portsmouth's image as a history destination. Look at the number of people that are traveling to Colonial Williamsburg now, and people may not know about Portsmouth and our colonial history, so it's a chance for us to get that story out there. It's an opportunity to increase the reach of our marketing and destination awareness for people who don't know that Portsmouth even is a destination. They just look at the conglomerate of Hampton Roads and think it's all just one place. So we want to give us some brand recognition there. Amplification of our social media. They'll have a very strong and aggressive social media program through VA 250, and we would be a part of that as well. It's an opportunity that we may be able to attract new sources of funding or private funding for new museums or new exhibits, a variety of different things. So it's just an opportunity for us to be able to be involved in that as well. And of course, shared educational exhibits. There will be traveling exhibits throughout Virginia, and that would give Portsmouth an opportunity to secure some of those exhibits coming to our city. What are the benefits? Increased visitation to the city. That's something that we always want to see, more people coming and experiencing what our city has to offer. Increased tax revenue. We look at sales tax, admissions tax, lodging tax, tourism tax, and restaurant tax, your meals tax, could all be impacted by this program. It gives us an opportunity to reach a national audience because this is a national celebration of America's independence. It's Virginia's role in America's independence. And to increase pride among the local community about all that we did in Portsmouth over the years to contribute to that whole effort. And then we will be provided with a dedicated page on the VA 250 website, which is anticipated to bring in a lot of traffic. Finally, the recommendations we're looking at doing right now is we would ask the council to adopt a resolution supporting the VA 250, to form a local 250 committee, and to designate, have the city manager designate a local liaison to work with the state commission. So those are the recommendations those are the next steps, if you will, if we decide to move forward with this program. Open for questions.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, is it Tolver?
Toller.
Toller, all right. As far as what you're saying that the city needs to do as far as forming you say a committee, and then that committee will make some recommendation. Is this after receiving the grant, or is this before?
No, the committee has to be, you have to pass the resolution and you have to form the committee and relate that back to the VA 250 Commission. And once that's done, then you become eligible for grant funding.
Okay.
But again, the committee would be the one who needs the group that puts together what the actual programs are that we are seeking funding for.
Okay. Also, have you had any involvement with Norfolk State History Department, Dr. Cassandra?
Through the museums, we just had Dr. Cassandra Newby Alexander here as a speaker. And so, yes, we've worked with them through the museum side.
I mean, will she be a part of this formulating strategy?
She could be if the council wants to make her a member of the committee.
Okay.
Dr. Whitaker, do you have any other questions, sir?
My concern with this, I think it has the opportunity to be good. My concern is that what we have seen from the governor's office with the attacks on critical race theory and how this story will be portrayed. For example, and I know you just put this in here preliminarily, but when it talks about on page 3, Portsmouth colonial story, and the colonial story is about African-American war heroes. That's why I say I'm hoping as this is put together that it's not just about war heroes, but it's about our total involvement, not only just from the colonial side, but also the issue of slavery and those who were trying to get freed from slavery, fighting with the British. And so I'm hoping it would be a holistic approach. My concern is just what I've seen coming from the governor's office.
Well, my understanding is it's going to be our story to tell, and so we tell that story the way we want it told, and that's how it will be communicated through the State Tourism Office.
And that has to go up to the state, and then they approve those recommendations.
My understanding is that they don't approve what happens on the local level.
Okay.
We just become part of what's happening across the state.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Toller, for the presentation. So I'm fully supportive. As a guy who commanded the shipyard formerly known as Gosport, the history predates the American Revolution, so we have history that a huge portion of our country doesn't. There weren't any people there except the Native Americans, and so their history is different than our history. We ought to tell our history. We ought to leverage our history. We have great history and an opportunity to use that history to bring people here and celebrate with us. And so I'm fully supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Thank you, Mr. Toller.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Peter Gagola. He is the marketing director. He will be presenting Public Empowerment Forum update.
Well, good evening, Mayor Glover.
Evening, sir.
Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, members of City Council, Madam City Manager. I am Peter Glagola. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for the City of Portsmouth, and I'm going to be presenting the briefing on the Public Empowerment Forums this evening. We have scheduled 3 public forums at our local high schools to get input from the citizens. The 3 locations are Churchland High School, Manor High School, and IC Norcom High School. These events will all take place on a Thursday in March from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Okay, slide went out of order, but that's okay. We have selected topics for each of these locations. And the reason we selected the topics is because we want to be able to focus on key areas so that we can keep in our 2-hour limit during these forums. At Churchland High School, we are going to be talking about the proposed budget of 2024, grants, economic development, code changes, the Airbnb, and about marketing and communications. At Manor High School, we're going to be talking about downtown development, the city jail, city hall, museums, changes at the city park, infrastructure, which is the water and sewer, changes to the roundabout between the pavilion and city hall, and public transportation. At IC Norcom High School, we'll be talking mainly about public safety, which will include crime prevention, the 911 system improvements, and then also we're going to be talking about different technologies the city is implementing. We have created a website on our, we've created a website through the city. I'm sorry, the slides up there aren't the ones that are in front of me, but so we're gonna, in the main area of the website, there is usually a banner. Right there is where you'll be able to click to find further information about these forums. There's also going to be a section where you can ask questions about any of the topics. And there also is a registration section so the citizens can register for any one of the 3 forums, and we'll know who is coming. We are also including 2 to 3 minute videos under each of the topic areas. So Churchland High School, let me go. I'll go to IC Norcom, Public Safety. Chief Jenkins has been videotaped for 2 to 3 minutes talking about our crime preventative methods right now so that the public will have a basis of information before they come to the forums. We're creating 18 videos, so every single topic will include a video. They're not on this site yet. We're very busy. We should have, we're busily been editing those. Those should all be up, and the site will be live on Friday. Also, on our YouTube site, there's called a playlist. So all 18 videos will be in a playlist, so if a community member wants to watch all 18 informational videos, they will have that option, or if they go to the website, they can click on each one individually. This is an example of the registration form. We're only asking people to put mandatory their name, their email, and which location they are coming to. Of course, you can put your address and other information if you wish, but we're only requiring those 3 areas. What we have been doing so far in the advertising realm, we have run a legal ad in the Virginia pilot that ran on the 12th. It's going to run on the 19th again. It is also running on Virginia or the pilot online. We are going to be putting together a series of advertisements on social media. This is including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, and LinkedIn. This is basically what the social posts will be looking like. They'll be talking about the different empowerment forums, the topics that will be included, and it will all drive everyone back to the website. We are also going to be advertising using our email listing called Port City. I'm going to be sending this information to all of the civic leagues so that they can share it with all of their members. And of course, we're going to be putting this on PCTV channel 4839. There'll be a graphic on there as well. What we have done so far, we've scouted all 3 locations so we can create a really good experience, not only for the people who are speaking, but for the citizens that are coming to these events. We have the basic stage. We're going to have the city council sitting to the left. We're going to have the city manager, our moderator, and our subject matter experts sitting on the right. The audience will be to the back. Audiences will have access to microphones. So if they do want to ask questions at this, to the subject matter experts, they can do that at that time. We're also going to have a stage in the back set up for media, so the media will be able to come in, cover these events. We are also going to be videotaping these events as the city and putting those on the YouTube channel and also publicizing those through our social media sites. All the directors of the city will be at all 3 of these events or someone that represents them, so if questions do come up, we have the people there to answer the questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So on slide number 4, our slide number 4, there's a link that says, please register for the forum you want to attend. Does
Yes, sir.
that mean you can only attend one?
You can attend all 3. You can check all 3 if you wish.
Okay, and then on the next page where it says registration, is that registration to attend or registration to ask to be a speaker?
That is registration to attend.
So is there any registration to be a speaker or to ask questions, or is that just going to be a lot wide open to whoever's in the room?
That's going to be an open forum to the people in the room unless we need to change that.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
As we are marketing this, are you marketing it in any other newspapers other than the Virginia Pilot? Are we marketing in any minority-based newspapers?
We can do that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir, for reminding me.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, thanks. One other comment. So in the public hearing advertisement, I know we've already run it once, but I wonder if we could update it to show which topics are going to be addressed at each location so that as folks are figuring this out, they sign up for the thing that they want to come to. Or is it too late?
It's not too late. I mean, our first session is March 2nd. Deadlines for the news, I mean, we still have a week and a couple days. We can put an ad in the Virginia Pilot and other papers in this area that are similar to the social posts that explain the topics, where they're going to be, and then also we can also put a QR code, so they can grab it on their phone and go to the website. One of the key features of these forums is also to get people back to our website. That's a big goal now, is try to drive people to our site.
Good, thank you.
Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. But people can attend even if they don't pre-register, is that correct?
That is correct. We just wanted to give the citizens the opportunity to register. Hopefully that will give us a count of number of people who are going to come. We hope to get questions as well so that we can see what topics are on people's minds. And it also may gauge the different forum at the high school on how many people may be attending that night.
I would suggest before each of the forums that we use the city's mobile message board and put it in close proximity to get word out in that particular area.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome. Thank you all.
Ms. Taylor? Terry, ma'am, you have the floor.
That concludes our presentations, but I would like to thank our, my staff. I would just like to thank you, the city leadership and staff, for your excellence, professionalism, and dedication. Thank you all so much.
And thank you, ma'am. We do have a need for liaison reports. So are there any liaison reports at this time? Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. A reminder to our citizens, the Planning Commission will be hosting a workshop. There are something like 27 pages of zoning changes, corrections, and clarifications, I think we're calling it, for folks to participate in on the evening of Wednesday, 22 February, 6 to 8, right here in City Council chambers, I believe. I want to extend that invitation to folks who care about what's in our zoning regulations. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other liaison reports? Seeing none, then we do have a need for a closed session. And we do have if someone would read the motion of the closed session, please.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.23711A.1 for the purpose of discussing and considering prospective candidates for and appointees to boards and commissions.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg? Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage? Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in closed session. Colleagues, we do have a need to certify our closed session. Could someone please read the motion?
I hereby move that each council member certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes. That concludes our work session. We will reconvene our meeting at 7 o'clock. So we'll see everybody back at 7 o'clock. Thank you.